if we don't do a video about Alfred, then our haters will accuse us of dropping Alfred. In fact, I think there is a video out there now saying Alfred scammed and dropped, and nothing could be further from the truth. Nobody can scam Alfred. Alfred is actually very shrewd when it comes to parting with his money. So what for those of you who don't know, we met Alfred a couple, or I don't know, it might even be 3 years ago now, and we met him, quite a surprise, when he turned up on our doorstep very early one morning in a tricycle taxi that had managed to get up the whole road and present him on the forecourt to, that's a fancy name for it by the way, but right out the front of the house. And down he got from his tricycle taxi with his suitcase, and he announced that he was a subscriber. This is someone that we'd never met in our lives and had never communicated to us, and he announced that he had come to stay for 7 weeks. Well, for me that seemed to be a bit of a stretch. So my suggestion was that we take him down to Talia, and we find a place for him to stay. He was a little bit wobbly even then on those legs of his. Beth said to me, well, why don't we just put him up for a couple of nights and then get him sorted out, which I agreed to. So but what happened was that he is a likable guy, so we kind of got used to him in a few days. And then he met Talia, and now Talia is a story in herself, because she was having trouble where she was living in the house that we built for her in the mountains. We heard about Talia through the church, and that she was having a very difficult time, that her brother had designs on her daughter, and it was all very, very difficult. We ended up going to the barangay to sort that out and have a hearing, and the brother came and was told in no mean terms not to pursue his interest in this young girl. So what to do? Talia didn't feel safe where she was in the house that we had built for her. So we just finished building a house for Lena, Beth's sister, and the little house that she had spent a lot of her years in was still standing right next to, with barely a metre and a half in between the new and the old, and it was still standing. And even though it was very tiny, it had been a home for Lena for a long, long time. In fact, Talia was born in that house. That's how it was, and it was in the same shape because we kept it in that shape. So Lena very kindly-heartedly said that Talia could stay with her 2 children in that house, and she did do that. And I believe that she must have been there about a year. Well, at that time, Lena was meeting another person, and that person came up and stayed here with us at the same time as Alfred. Meantime, Alfred had been seeing Talia, and the 2 of them seemed to hit it off, and that was it. He stayed for his projected 7-week stay after about a week, I think that was it, and he seemed to be getting on very well with Talia. Well, it all kind of got messy, as relationships do, and Talia ended up moving out, and she moved out. Now, when she moved out, because of a little difficulties, she and Alfred had decided that they would stay together, and they rented a house that was somewhere between, let me see, it was near Baracas, the Baraka resort, and there was a little house down there. It was very, very cheap, something very modest. So they had decided that they would build a house, and Alfred was going to do that. They looked around, they bought somewhere, and everything seemed to be going quite well. Well, they moved into their new house, and it didn't go so well. Now, Alfred had taken the precaution of doing what many expats do. He had bought the land in Talia's name, which is the way that it must be. So boyfriend and girlfriend, the boyfriend, the foreigner boyfriend, pays for the land and then builds a house on it. Now, they actually were offered, and nobody ever makes anything of this, but Nana very kindly offered them a couple of places where on her land, on our land, that they could build a house. When we walked out there and had a look at it, it was overlooking the rice fields and close to Manorado's house. The kids of Talia didn't like it. So they went out and they looked around and they found a piece of land. We helped them for the time that they were here. We helped them, and Timio helped them to find a place. The sale didn't go well. It was difficult. There were too many siblings who were not contactable for the signature, and Alfred decided that he would pass on that. Then he found another place. He bought a house. He designed it. He's very clever like that, and they seemed to be getting on very well. Well, turns out that that was not the way it was, and they ended up fairly recently, after a troubled period, they ended up splitting, right? And what was key to this split was how Alfred felt that he had been treated when he went to Manila to handle his out-of-date passport. Well, he did that, and a friend of ours, a married lady with 2 children, happily married lady with 2 children, Marge, and a very honest person as well, she accompanied him and helped him. She walked him through what he felt was a dangerous place in Manila, and she walked him through there, and they got the passport. They got back here in perfect time, and so everything seemed to be okay, except that Alfred was not happy. And the situation is now, as happens so many times in relationships, is that Talia seems to be unwilling to be, or unable to move on. Now, what had happened was that Talia is, and this is purely observational, not judgmental, because Beth and I went to the same church as Talia did. She is part of the church of Timio, who is Beth's brother. So, and is still there too. Well, she seems to be unwilling or unable to move on, and is still trying to find out stuff about Alfred. I guess she's still hoping that they can reconcile. Alfred has been adamant in this, in saying that he's not going to reconcile, that it cannot happen, because Alfred is not for whatever his beliefs are, he is not interested in such a dedicated religious life as Talia is. So that's the actual situation. Plus, at the time that he was with Talia, he was also adamant, as many people that have come to see us have been, about getting married. And more than one have come here and said, I am happily single. What the situation for Alfred was that he was married to a Thai woman, and it's been 9 years since they were separated. So he actually says that he doesn't know whether he is married or not. Certainly he is legally separated, but he hasn't heard from the woman in, I think, 9 years. So rather than go through what he describes as an agonizingly complicated process with the German government, who require that every paper is translated into German. Well, Alfred's living in the Philippines, so every paper has to be translated into English, and then it has to be translated from English into German. And each translation takes about a month, according to him. So he just cannot face it. And that was at the time. Now, since then, he has met someone who he realized he would actually do all of what was needed in order to be married to that person. And that person is pregnant, about 3 or maybe 4 months. Alfred felt that he could take that on, and in doing that, a mind change occurred in Alfred, which has got nothing to do with us. These are personal realizations that he's had about the way that he's been living, and he's realized that he doesn't want to live alone. While he is free from what he considers was not an ideal relationship with Talia, he's free, but he's also alone. And he realizes that while he wants the freedom, as many of us do, he's not prepared to live alone. So now, he's not averse to children. Children actually like Alfred. And a strange thing happened, that while Alfred became friends of Marjorie's family, right? Marjorie has a little boy, and the little boy has taken a real shine to Alfred and calls him Lolo, which is grandfather. And Alfred has spent some time there with the family. He's been to a birthday party, he bought the cake, he became involved in a personal family way, and he likes it. And he's been able to get along very well with a Filipino family. Now, he didn't have that for whatever reason. That didn't happen when he was with Talia. So take from that whatever you will and interpret it however you will. But all of this happened while Beth and I are not on the scene. We're really just hearing about this. And then we got the call. We took him up there because of he came to us for advice on what he should do about getting his visa reinstated. Now, the crux is he doesn't want to leave the country, because if he leaves the country, the present situation is that only foreigners who are married to Filipinos are allowed to come into the country. And who knows how long that will be. And as far as going back to Germany, Alfred says he can't do that because he can't afford on his pensions to live in Germany, and he doesn't want to live in Germany, nor can he really go back. He has nowhere to go back to in Thailand, so it kind of gets very difficult. So it's in that situation where he has to file the paperwork for the reinstatement of his visa in a way that he doesn't have to leave. So that's the ongoing situation at the moment. Some people have said he needs to go to the German embassy. He's been to the German embassy and they've done his passport, and that's where their power ends. Now he needs to deal with the immigration department of the Philippines, and they will be the ones to tell him whether he can or cannot stay and what the conditions will be for leaving and returning. Maybe they will agree to give him some kind of dispensation and say that he has to leave because he's been here 3 years and he'll be able to get back. That would be our hope. So, in going through all of this with the little boy calling him Lolo, Grandpa, buying the birthday cake and just being in a family that he feels comfortable in, he has now changed his way of thinking, and he called us yesterday and said, could we meet, because I really need to talk through some of the changes that I have been experiencing. So we met at PP Coffee today and we had a nice lunch, and he talked through the way that he's been feeling, and he realizes now that if the relationship that he has been looking at having with this young woman who is pregnant, and he's looked at that as a possible scenario. So now he asked us if we would do a video, which we have done, which you will be seeing, and can criticize, love or hate, whatever your own particularly bent is. And he's open to meeting people, to meeting women. And the lady that he did think highly of was, I think, 27 or 28, and she's gone through an unfortunate break with someone who has not met his responsibilities and is pregnant, and she was willing to talk to Alfred, and they met and everything. He liked her, and it opened the door. It opened this window of opportunity where Alfred realized that he could actually make a new start, and he is open to the idea of being a dad again. Now, there's been lots of different comments which you may have seen, and they're saying he's too old, he's too this, he's too that, he shouldn't be doing this, he shouldn't be doing that. And that, of course, is all par for the course of being on the YouTube. You know, you go out there and you announce your intention to do something, and a lot of people will get up and say, good on you, you're inspirational, you're wonderful, I'm inspired by what you are doing, you're courageous, you're brave, I love you. And the others are saying, you're a scumbag. No, there is no pleasing everybody, as we well know. So, he's not a scumbag. He would like to have a new start. He's a decent, honest person. He's only tried to be honest, and that's how I see him. But he is of firm opinions, so there's no pushing Alfred to do this or that or the other. He will do what he wants to do, but he has said that he's willing to meet someone. We've made our recommendations and said that he has his house that is close to Taliban. So it would make sense to me if he was to ask on his video, which I think he's done, to meet someone who is within that area so that it's easy, and so that if he's really lucky, he'll be able to find a family like Marge's and her husband that he enjoys being a part of. Because for my money, I think that's an important part of coming and moving to the Philippines and marrying a Filipina. I am extremely fortunate in that I am with a family, an extended family of Beths, and they've accepted me and loved me, and I feel very fortunate to have that situation, and we would hope for that situation for Alfred. So that's the scene. His processing of his visa is now in process. It's going along, thought to possibly mean a wait of a month or 2 months, which he's prepared to do. It will cost him. I had a letter from when we said before, does anybody have any ideas for Alfred? And somebody wrote to me and said, and told their story, but they were married to a Filipina, and they'd had a difficult time. They'd had to go to Manila. They'd used somebody in order to get the paperwork done, and it had cost them 135,000 pesos. Now, even that sounds an incredible amount of money, but it's only if you think of it as a Filipino. But if you think of it as a foreigner, it's actually not a huge amount of money. You do the math. So we're looking now at helping Alfred as much as we can. Tomorrow, it had been said that perhaps his place is now looking a little bit overrun, overgrown is what I'm thinking, because as far as keeping the place clean and everything, it's a very simple house to keep clean. And there's only him there. When we visited him at his request, it's always seemed clean and tidy. And that's just with him living there. So tomorrow we're going down there with a gang of volunteers, and after church we're going down there and we're going to get everything cut back. All right, so that there's no danger, as was foreseen by someone who said there's a danger of snakes. Okay, well, I go along with that if that's what everybody thinks. So we'll go down there and we'll cut everything back, and we'll do what we have to help it. Got a load of kids, so we'll make it fun, and we'll help him. Thanks for looking in. I have no doubt that the saga of Alfred the German is far from over. But we'll be back, and we'll do videos, and we'll let you know what's going on. And thanks for being with me. Bye for now.